Good evening. Let's call to order the Charter Review Committee meeting of August 7th at 5:01 p.m. The city does not tolerate disruptive behavior in our meetings. Sunnyvale prides itself on the rich diversity of our residents. We are committed to creating a culture of belonging where members of our diverse community feel included, safe, and respected. This Charter Review Committee meeting is considered a limited public forum, which means the committee can regulate the time, place, and manner of speech. Speaker comments must be limited to the agenda item being considered by the committee for consent calendar or public hearing items. Speaker comments during oral communications must be limited to matters within this committee's authority, generally referred to as the committee's subject matter jurisdiction. If the speaker's comments are not related to an agenda item, the presiding officer will rule the speaker out of order. A speaker will not be ruled out of order because of a disagreement with the content of their speech. Location and online meeting details are available on the Charter Review Committee's agenda. Use the Show Captions button to view captions on Zoom. Comments on matter not on the agenda must be submitted prior to the time I call the item for oral communications. Comments on agenda items must be submitted prior to the time I close the public hearing on the agenda item. Speakers are requested to keep their comments to the time period set for public comments for the agenda item, which will be strictly enforced. Guidelines are posted on the city's website and on the Charter Review Committee meeting agenda. And now, please join me for the salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And City Clerk, may we please have the roll call?
Yes, members, please request to speak. Chair Larson,
Here.
Vice Chair Wickham,
Here.
Member Pine,
Present.
Member Olafson,
Here.
Member Philly,
Here.
Member Newswanger,
Here.
Member Wee,
Present.
Member Rubino,
Here.
Member Vickery, Member Davis. 8 present with members Davis and Vickery absent.
Thank you. And committee members Davis and Vickery's absences are excused absences. And now is the public's opportunity to address the committee on topics not listed on tonight's agenda. The section is limited to 15 minutes and may be extended or continued after the public hearing's general business section of the meeting. Individuals may only speak once during oral communications. This Charter Review Committee meeting is a limited public forum, and the committee can regulate the time, place, and manner of speech. Speaker comments during oral communications must be limited to matters within the committee's authority, which is known as the committee's subject matter jurisdiction. If a speaker's comments are outside the committee's subject matter jurisdiction, the presiding officer will rule the speaker out of order. This allows the committee to conduct its business in a reasonably efficient manner and protects the rights of other speakers. A speaker will not be ruled out of order because of a disagreement with the content of their speech. Please submit a speaker card to the city clerk or raise your digital hand now or dial *9 on a telephone to indicate you wish to speak. The city clerk will call on members of the public participating in person first, followed by remote participants. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. City Clerk, do we have any in-person participants wishing to speak on oral communications?
Yes, Chair, we have Steve S. Steve, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Okay, you got a couple of things I emailed to you. Hopefully you had some time to see it. I wanted to present a little bit of Sunnyvale history. Here we see a summary of 1913 up to 2025. We had 19 resignations. There's some groupings in years there. Well, about 16 were filled in the vacancy. Some of the appointments were sort of weird, filled within 1 or 2 weeks. No public comment at all. One retired. We had one interim council member and I had a retired medical one in 2011. Next page, please. Some other things in our history is in 1975, 4 of our sitting council members had originally been appointees on there. We also had 2009 council member military deployment, and Dean Chu was a former council member, was made a 1-year interim council member, but this resulted in a vesting he was not due because he wasn't reelected at all. And it also triggered a very critical grand jury report that talked about appearance of Brown Act problems, not adequate public notice, limited information that it was going to confer lifetime benefits to the appointee, and military benefits. Otto Lee got things that were not offered for anybody else. Next page. In 2011, there was a grand jury policy here. Hiring pensioners, bad policy, good business. That went to all the cities in the county. It wasn't just aimed at Sunnyvale like the other one was. And then we saw in 2013, we changed to even elections, Measure A. It was proposed as a cost savings, extended council members' terms by 1 year without reelection, and there was limited or no mention at all that this would affect pension liability for the city. So what we had was in 2016, here's the end rolling problem. 2016, 3 incumbents were out after 1 term, but because they had been gifted an extra year, they had triggered a 5-year city and CalPERS lifetime benefits, okay? And that resulted in extra pension liabilities for their lifetimes to the city, and they were not otherwise due this because they were supposed to have been elected at least twice. And here's some ballot things. On the next page, these are things you can, I guess we didn't change one. This just talks about the 3 incumbents out. And then go to the next page. Next 2 you can read at your leisure. This is just a summary, the best I could do out of the city's list that they provided for me. It looks like mostly from 2013 to 1970, mostly resignation, sometimes 2 at a time. Sometimes repeat people, like somebody got appointed and then they resigned later. Since the 80s, we had more electeds that were in there. We corrected that problem to an extent. All right, thank you.
Chair, that was the only in-person speaker wishing to speak under oral communications.
Okay, and I'll just check, does anyone else want to speak under oral communications before we hear from remote speakers? Seeing none, because of the nature of remote communications, speakers who are ruled out of order will not be given another chance to speak on this item. Therefore, speakers are warned to limit their comments to subjects that fall within the committee's authority to decide or take action. City Clerk, do we have any remote participants wishing to speak on oral communications?
No, Chair.
Thank you. So I will go ahead and close oral communications. And now we come to the consent calendar. I'll start by opening public comment on the consent calendar item, singular. Please submit a speaker card to the city clerk or raise your digital hand now or dial *9 on a telephone to indicate you wish to speak. The city clerk will call on members of the public participating in person first, followed by remote participants, and speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. City Clerk, do we have any in-person participants wishing to speak on a consent calendar item?
No, Chair.
Thank you. So do we have any remote participants wishing to speak on a consent calendar item?
No, Chair.
Okay, then I will close public comment and I'll bring it back to the committee for a motion. Do we have a motion on the consent calendar? Member Olofsson.
I move we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you. And Member Newswanger.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, so let's go to a vote. City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Members, please request to speak. Member Newswanger. Member Davis. Member Wee. Chair Larson.
Yes.
Member Philly. Member Vickery. Member Olafson. Vice Chair Wickham. Member Pine.
Yes.
Member Rubino.
Yes.
Making sure I've called everyone. I believe I have. Okay. The motion carries 7-1-2 with Member Wee abstaining and Members Davis and Vickery absent.
Okay, thank you. Now we move on to public hearings and general business. Item 2 on our agenda is number 25-0778. Approval of Subcommittee Number 1 recommendation regarding the Charter Section 611 regular meetings. Let's see, is there a subcommittee report? And if not, is there a staff report?
If I could just remind the committee is that at our last meeting, the subcommittee one had recommended that we take a motion in regards to this item. So I would defer if there's any subcommittee members from subcommittee one to present the item.
Yeah, and it could be that you've said everything you needed to say at the last meeting, although a quick refresher would certainly be helpful. Oh, that's right. There we go. Sorry, forgot that I had to do that. Member Pine.
Thank you. Yeah, the subcommittee, as expressed at the previous meeting, when subcommittee one discussed this, it was our sense that the desired council break could be accomplished using the existing charter language, and that we believe that any revision could be perceived negatively by the public and would have a detrimental effect on any other ballot measures we were to propose. And again, the juice would not be worth the squeeze. So we recommend not revising the current language of Charter Section 611.
Thank you for that report. And then we'll go to questions from the committee, and then we'll open the public hearing. So questions from other committee members. Member Rubino?
No, I have nothing.
Oh, okay. No question there. So no other questions from the committee. So I will now go ahead and open the public hearing on this specific item. Please submit a speaker card to the city clerk, or raise your digital hand now, or dial *9 on a telephone to indicate you wish to speak. The city clerk will call on members of the public participating in person first, followed by remote participants. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. City Clerk, do we have any in-person participants wishing to speak on this item?
Yes, Chair, we have Steve S. Steve, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Let's get right to the end. I fully support this. I think it's a good decision. And it certainly is something that I alone didn't interpret myself when it was presented last November. And I really appreciate how Subcommittee 1 has gone through and looked at this more pragmatically, which is what's a real change. You can get 4 weeks out of this. It also was very interesting. I think it'll be interesting to the public that with the 40 meetings that we have per year, I agree with your conclusion. It's really hard to get much past that. I think maybe you described up to 6 weeks, but beyond that would be a little tough to do. So good job, and I fully support that we would try to pursue that. Thank you.
Chair, that was the final in-person speaker wishing to speak on this agenda item.
Okay, one more call for anyone in person wishing to speak. Seeing none, we go to remote speakers. Remote speakers are warned to limit their comments to the agenda item being considered. Speakers who are ruled out of order will not be given another chance to speak on this item. This is for agenda item 25-0778. City Clerk, do we have any remote participants wishing to speak on this item?
No, Chair.
Thank you. So I will close the public hearing, and I will now ask for any additional discussion from my colleagues or a motion. And let's see, we'll start with Member Wee.
I'm playing catch up after being away, but thank you for the chart that Committee One or the Subcommittee One put together. That was very helpful. And I'm looking at that, said, yeah, it makes sense. Just leave it as is. So that's where I'm at. Also, thanks.
Anyone else? Vice Chair Wickham.
Yeah, I'll just kind of repeat what I had said last time, which is, council did direct us to work on this item, and it just feels a little bit presumptive that we would drop it. I also really appreciate all the work that went into the analysis, and I actually agree with it. And I haven't completely decided how I'm going to vote, but I just wanted to raise that as a topic. Like, should we discuss it a little bit more before we drop it?
Thank you. Did staff have a comment?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to weigh in that just because you're dropping it, you remember this is a list. The final report will still include all the analysis that the subcommittee did. And it just because you're recommending to council that you're not doing any additional research or background on it, it doesn't mean it comes off the list. Council still has the priority. If they want to move forward with it and put it on the ballot, they can do that. But your recommendation would be is we've done this work as a committee. This is the feedback that we received from the public, and as a committee, this is a recommendation at this time.
Great, thank you. We'll go to Member Rubino, followed by Vice Chair Wickham.
Do I press this or not?
No, I think you're on now.
Okay, okay, so here's my question. Based upon what the recommendation is, Melissa, did you look at the charter to see if that analysis works? Uh-oh, hot seat.
This is a policy decision, so I'm not sure what the legal question here is.
Oh, so I may be misstating this, but I think the group one figured out that the existing charter would allow changes to the meeting schedule. So my question is that
So my understanding of the committee's analysis, and maybe the committee members can clarify, the charter requires 2 meetings a month, but it doesn't specify that they have to be every other week. So I think the committee's analysis was that the meetings could be set to within a month. And when you look at a series of months, there could be a certain amount of time depending on how you schedule. If you schedule those meetings sort of at the beginning of a month and toward the end of a second month, there could be a period of time. So that I think that was their analysis.
okay, yeah, but
And that's correct under the charter because the charter doesn't say meetings have to occur every other week. It just says twice a month.
okay, so it seems like it's okay then.
Well, I mean, if that depends on what goals the committee has in terms of scheduling meetings. But the subcommittee is correct that there could be an extended period of time between meetings based on how 2 meetings a month is scheduled over a two-month period.
And if I could just add, Chair, from Steph's perspective, we've done that. Actually, we just came off a long break in July where we did that, where we were able to schedule something on very early in July, and then we didn't meet until the very end. So I think we got 3 weeks from that. So we're already sort of using that practice.
Thank you.
Next is back to Vice Chair Wickham and then Member Olafson.
I just had one other comment, which is if we do vote to drop further work on this, then we would lose out on getting feedback from the public. So, if it turned out in our surveying that, the vast majority of the responses were, yeah, let's do this, and people were excited about it, then that could change, what. Yeah. So yes, the public has weighed in already, but not in a formal survey.
Thank you. And next is Committee Member Olafson, followed by Committee Member Wee.
Thank you. We just looked at the plain language, black and white of the charter, could not find anything in the charter that would require changing or any other area we could find that would limit it. Because we are a charter city, the charter has wide latitude and allowing us to make changes. Well, we couldn't find anywhere in state law or other that would require additional work. So we chose the path of least resistance, saying that we should leave this up to the council on when they wanted to take a break if they decided to do so. Thank you.
And next is Member Wee.
And was there an upgrade to these are green now? I thought I like it.
Yes.
I get it now. Thank you. Yeah, looking at what we have in front of us, we'd like to get public feedback on. I think we've got bigger fish to fry where they make a much bigger difference. Given the analysis that the subcommittee one put together, this is not a big enough bang for the buck, as it were, and I think the public will find it a little bit distracting, and people don't like change. And so we minimize the amount of change we put in front of them. It'll be easier to get them to have some other things that'll make a bigger difference for our city than this particular change. So that's where I'm still sitting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so this item is agendized for action. So we need a motion and then we can vote. We'll start with Member Pine, followed by Member Olafson.
Yeah, on behalf of the subcommittee, I move the subcommittee recommendation to not revise the current language of Charter Section 611 regular meetings.
Thank you. And Member Olafson.
A second.
Yes, the Member Pine.
Yeah, I think we've discussed this sufficiently. I don't think I need to say anything more on this. Please vote yes.
Member Olafson, did you have any follow-up?
No, thank you.
All right. Seeing no other comments from the committee, let's take this to a vote. So City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote. And if we could get the microphones on as people vote, then everyone watching at home can hear the vote.
Okay, here we go. Member Vickery, Member Davis, Member Pine,
Yes.
Member Wee,
Yes.
Chair Larson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wickham,
Yes.
Member Philly,
Yes.
Member Rubino,
Yes.
Member Olafson,
Yes.
Member Newswanger.
Yes.
The motion carries 8-2 with members Davis and Vickery absent.
Okay, moving right along. Agenda item 3, number 25-0796, discussion of possible charter amendments, compensation, Section 605, vacancies, Section 606, city manager authority to settle claims over $50,000, Article 8, and alternative project delivery methods for public works contracts, Section 1309, including possible direction regarding community engagement. And I'll just note for the public that since, excuse me, since there are a number of items here, we're going to take public comment several times throughout here. So you get more than one shot at it. And let's see the best way to break this up. I think probably the best way is to do it by the subcommittee numbers that we have. So we'll just take that one at a time. So we'll start with subcommittee number 1, and someone's actually going to have to remind me which of these items are subcommittee number 1.
A good question.
Member Pine.
606 is subcommittee 1, our other item we just disposed of.
Okay, so we'll start with vacancies, section 606. And let me see, what do we have? Probably see if there's a staff report.
It's a very brief one from us. One of the things that we wanted to provide today is for the committee to have more discussion. You know, the last meeting that we had was very robust with all the analysis and the subcommittee report. But we wanted to bring this opportunity a lot. At the last meeting, we talked a lot about public engagement in order to move forward. And we had some staff from our comms item coming to talk. So we wanted to make sure that the committee, the subcommittee members and the committee as a whole could come to a agreement as to, you know, sort of a good plan for community engagement. Staff is recommending that we do a consolidated survey for all the items. I can go into maybe some example questions, but what the ask from staff is for the full committee and subcommittee really to think about the questions that you want to ask for your topics items, and then also give you an opportunity if you need more subject matter experts to come to the next meeting to talk about any particular item or issue that you may want to really do more of a deep dive on that. We can do that for the following committee meeting. But for the outreach plan, for the consolidated, excuse me, consolidated survey that we are proposing to cover the remaining topics that are still on the list regarding compensation, the vacancies, the city manager's claim authority, the public works delivery and method. You know, we want to make sure that we ask questions in regards to, let's see, I'm sorry, we were dealing with vacancies. I apologize. My notes were not broken down by the subcommittee, so I apologize. Yes, so let me get to the vacancies. You know, the questions that staff is thinking that we would want to add, but we want the committee report for the surveys, you know, how would vacant seats be filled? Would they be by council appointment, by special election, or based on timing of the next regular election? And then another sample question would be what is the maximum number of days a council seat should remain vacant before requiring a special election? And we could list options, you know, such as 30, 60, 90 days or other. So those are sort of two sample questions just to get the conversation started that staff wanted to talk about this item.
Okay, and to just kind of give the committee some context and framework for this, what's the timeline for putting the survey together and pushing it out to the public?
So we could get feedback. Like I said, we wanted to start having this conversation today. At our next committee meeting, we wanted to finalize the actual survey. So we would be able to come back and prepare from a staff's perspective, a full survey with all the questions from the committee as a whole. So you can take final action on that. Based on that, we could turn around and put it on the city's website right away and keep it open up until the following committee meeting. So then we can present the findings and then figure out based on the findings, the community input, sort of our next steps. But in between then, we would also do a lot of marketing for that event. And there's different platforms that we could use, whether it's our existing social media platforms, council meetings, you know, neighborhood groups, the library. There's different areas. And I apologize, I'm losing my voice. There's different areas that we could advertise that survey to be able to gather that feedback.
Okay, so the next meeting is end of August, beginning of September. So that's the goal for getting the questions finalized. And so we have a chance tonight to talk about them, and then subcommittees can also reach out to you in the meantime, interim, to refine questions, and then probably have to get it to you, I don't know, maybe like a week before the meeting to get it into the packet.
Correct.
Okay. And then we, as a whole committee, can finalize it, and then it can go out for probably about a month, and then it, early October, we close the survey and get the results back.
Correct. And in the meantime, too, again, if the committee, if there's any subject matter experts, if we need somebody from Public Works or Finance to come do a little bit more of a deeper dive on some of the items, we could do that. As part of the communication, overall, we could work with the communication staff, as we talked earlier about doing, some very high-level talking points on our website that the survey can point back to. If you want more information, you could point back to the subcommittee reports or any other documentation that we have readily available.
Okay, yeah, so thank you for reminding me about other city staff being available to come to the committee meeting. And certainly tonight, we could make that request, or later we could follow up with you. Either way.
Correct.
Yeah, and hopefully with enough time that you can actually schedule someone and get them here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if committee members feel that there are questions or topic or like areas within these topics where they'd like to hear from other city staff, maybe start to bring that up tonight and kind of frame what additional information would be helpful to get. So please feel free to put that out there. Okay, so now we are on vacancies. Let's see, any questions from committee members? We'll start with committee member Wee.
Yeah, I have another question just about the general process before we get to the vacancy space. Yeah, for the one that my committee was assigned, I could see the need for us to meet as a little group, come up with some questions after hearing the feedback here. And then ideally, just schedule an hour or two with some staff just to bounce some stuff off, just to make sure we're on track so we can revise it further, so that we don't have, I hate doing a lot of work that we have assumptions and we throw it over the wall and then it comes back as like, oh no, you can't do that at all. And I want to make sure that we make progress at these meetings without having to have big time lapses. Is that an option, is to just, have a little focused session, just the subcommittee, just with some staff people, just to make sure our thinking is on track for how we'd like to word it?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that would definitely be an option. So you can just reach out to me directly.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very much encouraged for exactly the reasons you're saying. That I think that's more communication is better. Very good point. Thank you. All right. Any other committee questions, comments, input that you'd like to provide? Member Pine.
Yeah, I have a policy-related question regarding charter language. Do you want me to, the existing 606 language, do you want me to do that now or hold for after the public hearing?
Either way. It's probably better now in case the public wants to respond to that.
Yeah, okay, okay. So this is kind of a little pointed, but and I apologize for not foreshadowing this, but the current language of 606, so this is something we kind of discussed in the committee report, but in the subcommittee, but it has become a bit more concrete since we last met, so I kind of wanted to bring it up. The current language of 606D says that if the vacancy is filled by appointment, the appointee should hold office until the next general municipal election or special municipal election consolidated with the next statewide election, whichever occurs sooner, and a successor is elected and qualified. Would that render the schedule, so if there was a vacant, so let's pretend that there was a vacancy that was filled by appointment, like right now. And so my understanding is that we'd the current charter, the election would normally be would be, as of today, scheduled for the June election, which is the next regularly scheduled statewide election. Should the state legislature reconvene next week and call a statewide special election for November, would that bump would the current charter immediately bump our election up to be November instead of next June?
I mean, I don't know that I can give an absolute answer to that because it would depend a lot on what the legislature did, but if they, I think the charter language was supposed to relate to the established election dates that exist in state law. So if they changed that, I suppose, I don't know that that would be possible to do it that quickly under the scenario that you're presenting. So.
And that sounds like something maybe staff would need to have some time to
Yeah.
go reflect on and see what would,
I mean, it seems very hypothetical.
yeah, Member Pine.
Oh, turned it off. So when I was thinking about this in subcommittee, I was thinking about like the 2005 special election, that statewide special election that then Governor Schwarzenegger called for. I don't expect you to like know this off the top to have like an answer to this off the top of your head, but like when I was thinking out in the subcommittee, I was thinking about like the 2005 statewide special election for Governor Schwarzenegger called, or like the 2000, God, I don't remember the year off the top of my head, but like the 2003 recall election, or the 2021, I think it was, statewide recall election. Like there is reasonably recent precedent for short notice statewide elections. And I
mean, the elections also have to correspond with like the date, like I don't think it would be possible for them to set a November election date now because the county needs a certain period of time to set up the election. And I think that date is probably passed.
The news reporting I've seen says that they have until August 22nd to call that's news reporting.
They have dates. I don't know them
Yeah,
off the
but
top.
and I know that the county is, I think today, actually, the supervisors are voting on to add and we're already having a county special election. I know the supervisors were voting today on whether to add a sales tax measure to it. But like, I've just been following news reports. I don't have a bill. Legislature in front of
And
me,
we've had resignations and looked to fill vacancies or call special elections. It also depends a lot on the timing.
Yeah.
So we would have to look at all of those things together and in context. And I think you're presenting a hypothetical without all of those facts to fill in. So it's a really difficult question to answer.
Yeah, I know I'm being a pain in the butt here, but like, I just saw that language saying next statewide election, and it just raised a big red flag to me saying, but we've had weird off-cycle statewide elections, and I don't want to and I worry that we could end up consolidating we could basically end up having a snap city council election that nobody was actually expecting. It's an edge case. It is definitely an edge case, but anyway, it's just been something that's been on my mind. And again, it's been more on my mind in the recent weeks, given that, again, the last time we met, I didn't think we would be potentially looking at a statewide special election in November. So
it sounds to me like that's a question that staff would need to research a little bit. And I'm not even sure what the answer would look like because there are hypotheticals involved.
I'm just trying to come up with is there a scenario where under the current language, we might unexpectedly find out that our city charter, that our special municipal election has been bumped up by several months because of something Sacramento did, or something a bunch of people submitting a recall petition did. Because I feel like the answer is yes, but I'm not a lawyer, so.
Yeah, I think,
And I feel like the answer I want is no, but I don't know if that's the case with the current language.
got it. Yeah, I think we'll have to, I don't think we're going to get the answer tonight.
Yeah,
on that.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. It's just, this is something I have been thinking a lot about.
All right, next is member Wee, followed by member Rubino.
I appreciate committee members Pine's thinking, 'cause, as a programmer and a test engineer, I try to think of the edge cases because that's actually what got us into this. We hit an edge case earlier that put us in a very bad state. I like watching out for those beforehand rather than get caught after the fact with them. But I have a simpler question. What have we actually just thought of just making it just the next general municipal election and leaving it at that? Is there a problem with that approach for these vacancies? And just taking out the special election thing, so it's just not even part of the equation, so we avoid that edge case. It's a very simple change and very easy to explain. I was curious.
Yeah, and I'm interpreting member Pine's question as saying, if we don't change the charter, are we vulnerable to this case?
I mean, I think the other thing is it depends a lot on the timing. So even if the state legislature says we're having an election, if they said that next week, the city still has to take certain actions to call an election. And that takes a certain amount of time, which might not be enough time with all of the other deadline, like county deadlines and things like that. So I think in that case, probably the answer would be no, because we don't have time to do it. But, you know, again, that's why the facts and the dates and things like that matter. So I think I think there is a possible scenario where the answer would be no, because we don't have the ability to do it in a timely way. But I think it would depend a lot on the facts.
So just to expand on this, so the gist is possibly not making any change at all and leaving it the way it is. That what we're thinking from the subcommittee.
Sorry. Just trying to avoid too much back and forth here. So maybe we'll just leave that question on the table and then circle back if member Pine or another committee member would like to chime in.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a good clarification to ask about. So next we'll go to member Rubino, followed by member Newswanger.
So Martin, is it D that you're looking at? Okay, so I think what's interesting that you brought up is I'm also a program manager, so I think you would have to come up with some use cases of when it would be possible to trigger this. And then figure out if that's deleterious. I think that's how you pronounce that word, but I'm not sure. That's what I would suggest, is we figure out if there's any use cases where this would happen. And then figure out what to do if the answer is yes. Because it could be like you were saying, that it just could say until the next general election. And then get out the special election consolidated with the next statewide election. So I think it might be, I'm just speculating, it might behoove us to come up with some use cases.
Okay, thank you. And next is member Newswanger, followed by member Olafson.
My comment may be moot. I was just going to repeat what the committee had recommended. Would that be helpful or not at this point? Okay. Well, we had two questions. One was about which election to use. We felt that the general elections have a lower cost, higher voter turnout, and it was worth it to us to hold our elections during general elections for those reasons. And so that was the recommendation of the committee, the subcommittee. The other question was, should the maximum number of appointees on the council at any one time be limited to 2 as currently provided, or to just one. And that was the one that we really didn't come up with an answer within our committee and wanted to refer to for public comment. Is that helpful? Yeah.
Yes, very helpful. Thank you. Okay, Member Olafson.
Thank you. In our report, we had a chart that summarized a lot of the discussions we had. But to apparently, from what I'm hearing tonight, we could have been had some more concrete examples in terms of timing. We can do that. And if that would be helpful for the committee as a whole, we can take the chart where we had high, low, and all that, and put that into, assume today is the vacancy. How would this affect based on today's charter? And how would it be affected if we made changes according to some of the speculation we came up with? And we can do that and get that to the general committee by the next meeting so that you can see what our thinking was and how we came up with this chart. Because we pretty much have already done the work, but maybe our consolidated chart was not as clear as we thought it was. So I think I'd be willing to spend some time putting that together for the rest of the committee.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm definitely hearing interest from the committee members in getting more information on that point. And next we go to Member Newswanger.
I guess I was just going to ask you what was going to be on that report. Would it be related to the problem that Member Pine mentioned today in relation to that? I see. Yes, great. Thank you.
Let's go to staff.
And if I could just add, for clarification, when you're thinking of your table and think about how you would ask for input for the public, right, to make it pretty straightforward, we can definitely help with that. But if you can start formulating your questions or how do you want to get input, think about sort of like, using layman terms and just very basic questions to get some of that feedback that you're looking for.
All right. I don't see anything else from the committee, so we will go to the public. All right. So please submit a speaker card to the city clerk or raise your digital hand now or dial *9 on a telephone to indicate you wish to speak. The city clerk will call on members of the public participating in person first, followed by remote participants. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. City Clerk, do we have any in-person participants wishing to speak on this item?
Yes, Chair, we have Steve S. Steve, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
My slides up also, if you would hand out the handouts just for this particular section. Okay. Is that the full screen, I guess? I guess it is. Okay. In looking at 606 vacancy, I did an analysis of what are the criteria of attributes that we're looking for. And I came up with a sandwich technique here. You got a top bun, bottom bun, you got some things in the middle. Okay, at the top, craft and propose changes that voters will trust. Okay, that's really important to do that. Must convey a real remedy, not a perceived remedy. Must primarily benefit the voters and city operations. Some really important things are don't try to fool the voters, don't try to combine things. We saw what happens when you do that. Avoid council member personal agendas, virtue signaling, those kind of things. Avoid primarily benefiting the council member themselves or their political friends. And as we have seen many times of people saying, and we saw an example of Larry Stone, a former council member, noting that single subject members are best, and an open election is really money well spent. What's your risk otherwise? Higher risk of ballot challenge and failure. Okay. I also looked at the consideration of the history. We've seen some earlier here. We see what happened for well over 100 years. We see that 4 council members were originally appointed, really something we don't want. ballot measure in 1976 was proposed, and it did lead to the term limits in the charter. And its purpose was to elect council members and preclude appointments. Okay. We see also how the council actions, whether they were well-intentioned or not, had unintended consequences that are living with us for decades, possibly. Okay. A critical grand jury report on what we did during a 2009 interim. Council actions ended up with 4 extra people with lifetime benefits, PERS we have to pay into, and any city benefits. They were only 1-term council members. And then we also see the county talk to all the cities about being careful about rehiring pensioners. So let's come to the main things here. Is I recommend that we have 10 months or less at the maximum on 606, and that 606G vacancies be no more than 1 appointee. And this is some proposed wording for your consideration. Obviously, you need to digest it. Blue is changes, red is strikeouts, no more than 10 months, ... And the appointment, if the time limit is reached, you can appoint a new person subject to the same time limits or leave the vacancy held open. In the G, same that we had before, which was only 1. And I added the little clarifier at the bottom, which is with a preference to consolidate it with the next election, whatever your time allows for that. So if there are any questions you have, I'd be willing to entertain those. And seeing none, I shall bid you adieu.
Chair, that was the final in-person speaker wishing to speak on this agenda item.
Okay. Check one more time for anyone in person wishing to speak. So we'll go to remote speakers. Let's see. Remote speakers are warned to limit their comments to the agenda item being considered. Speakers who are ruled out of order will not be given another chance to speak on this item. This is for agenda item 25-0796. City Clerk, do we have any remote participants wishing to speak on this item?
No, Chair.
Okay, then I will pause the public hearing on this so that we can come back to it later. Any final questions or comments on vacancies from the committee members? And I'll start with Vice Chair Wickham, followed by Member Newswanger.
So I just had a question if, we were talking about having a maximum number of appointed council members. So if one had been appointed and then we later got a second, resignation or whatever, what would happen in that case? We'd have to have an election, and just curious how that would work.
I think that's a question to staff, perhaps.
If the limit for appointed to council members was 1 and we already had 1 appointed council member, the council would have to call an election and the seat would remain vacant until someone was elected to that seat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Member Newswanger, followed by Member Rubino.
The 10-month limit is, that's significant. I made a table for myself when I was preparing for the last meeting. With the current system, the way I figured it, the longest appointment duration that you might have would be 15 months. And that's if we continue to use the March or June election. It would be 20 months. The longest possible appointment could be 20 months if we moved it to the general election. If we limited it to 10 months, that would force a special election. They're hugely expensive. So I would be reluctant to do that. The other thing is, that letter from Larry Stone went to the CRC that he chaired. And that committee ultimately came up with a hybrid system that included both appointments and elections. And it limited appointments to 2 members. So even though he wrote that letter, he was one voice out of, I don't know how many. And they ended up doing something different. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Member Rubino.
Yeah, I guess my question is emergency planning. What happens if we lose all the assembly? What happens if we lose all council members through some freak happening? Then what happens? Is it the city have a plan on that? Or if we lose 4 or 2 or 1 or whatever? So this gets back to the emergency stuff if there's a calamity.
We have a very robust Office of Emergency Service and contingency plans. So if there is an emergency that's declared, the city manager actually has a lot more powers under that scenario. Subject obviously to a resolution after the fact. But if we do need to act, there is a contingency plan in place that the city manager has a lot more powers than under normal conditions.
So I guess my question is, do we need to know what that plan is? Just as is the charter and as the charter members, do we need to know what that is? And does council know what that is?
It's in the municipal code, it's chapter 2.16 of the municipal code.
Tell me again,
2.16,
in the municipal code.
yeah. And those are fairly standard emergency organization provisions for cities in the event of disasters or other emergencies.
So I guess I'll, do me a favor, why don't you email that to everybody so everyone knows where it is? And then I would suggest we might want to talk about that a little bit. Because I haven't read it or seen it. Because I'm interested in how you reconstitute a government.
And I think we're getting a little off topic from.
Well, not really.
Vacancies.
Because if you have a major calamity, you could lose people.
And this topic is on filling the vacancies.
Correct, but you would have vacancies.
Yeah.
I think though the city's operation in the event of a declared emergency is a different situation than the vacancy provisions that the charter contemplates, which are the city is running as normal outside, no emergency declaration in place, and a vacancy happens in the sort of normal business as usual situation.
Okay. Good enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Member Olafson.
Thank you. It's my understanding in a city manager environment, the city council sets policy and approves major changes, but the city is run by the city manager. And the city council has no authority to direct the city employees to go out and do different things. So I've been volunteering at OES for 13 years now. And it's my belief that the city will continue just fine other than floods, earthquakes, tornadoes. But the city as a functioning organization continues as is. Thank you.
Okay, one last call for committee comments. I think we've had a very robust discussion on this, so thank you all for that. So now we will move on to subcommittee number 2, which is compensation, section 605. Let's see, any staff comments on that?
Nothing in addition to what I already mentioned earlier. The only thing I could if I could jump to maybe some questions that you might want to think about this for the survey would be should council compensation adjust over time to reflect cost of living? What would be considered a reasonable monthly salary, right? Maybe based on some research that the committee did. The other thing that might have come up on some research that we quickly did too is, is there a different committee or commission that might be tasked with determining compensation so that the council is not acting on their own behalf? But those are some of the sort of high level 3 items that we noticed that some other cities might use.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'll give the subcommittee the first chance to weigh in if there are particular questions you have for the committee as a whole. This is a good time to bring them up so we can respond or think about that, but not required to. So we'll start with Member Wee.
So something that came up from us when we were talking about this is it would increase the compensation for council members and the mayor significantly above what it was now. And we're just curious what other committee members thought of that bump up. We have heard from members of the public that they said they shouldn't make that much money. But in our analysis in our subcommittee, it said, well, we want people who are able to live here and be able to serve on the council. So we really want to fairly compensate them for their time, since they need to make a living. At some point, you have to pay bills, and we want to make sure that our council members aren't destitute and aren't homeless. So yeah, because the index, we also wanted to see what people thought of doing this indexing thing, which would basically account for increases, because we just use an outside index of what the average compensation is and just vector off of that based on how much time council members and mayor spend, and just do some ratio on that. And that, what the ratio should be and which index to pick, those are all the questions. We had our recommendation based on our own research, but there's a lot of questions in this space. There's a lot of variability. And this is, I think, the biggest, hardest one for voters to swallow if we're going to make a change.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we'll start with Member Olofsson.
Thank you. I looked at the committee report and liked the idea of an index that is current. When I was last on this 12 or 13 years ago, we recommended using CPI. First, we recommended bumping the current pay up to something that made sense at the time, and then indexing that to CPI, but limiting it to 5%, which at the time, prior to that, 5% was kind of the upper limit anyway. Based on how the CPI has behaved since that time, and the fact that the CPI covers other things than the cost of living in a practical sense, I thought the committee's recommendation to use something like the American survey made a lot of sense, but then not saying taking the full amount, but a percentage, that 50% or 75%, would address the public comment that we didn't want to hire professional politicians. I do agree that having citizen legislatures makes a lot more sense especially for Sunnyvale. I've admired places like Texas that have a part-time legislature no matter what. And I think they end up being closer to the normal citizen. So I liked your committee recommendation of taking the median and then making a percentage of that. So I would like to express my thing conceptually. I like that. I haven't taken the last 10 or 15 years of the ACS survey and seeing what that median would have been and what 50% would have been, but I suspect it's a lot better than what we recommended over a dozen years ago. Thank you.
So I'll jump in with my thoughts, and I was thinking similarly about pegging it to like an area, a percentage of area median income. And that got me thinking about, we have income levels for affordable housing that are based a percentage off of the area median income. I think it's calculated county-wide, so it's not just Sunnyvale, but it's kind of the whole area. And I thought that actually gave some interesting context to the numbers, because our current salaries, and then they have salary numbers for based on household size, 1 person, 2 person, 3 person. So if you just look at a single person household, our current council salary, I believe, is in the extremely low income category. And I could see moving it up to something in the very low income category. And I think tying it to those levels in some ways makes it clear we're not talking about making this a career level salary. But it also kind of makes it clear how it fits in with other salaries in this area. And those are strictly a percentage of the area median income. But I just thought, perhaps that's a way to give some context to what the numbers mean. Although if you give people a salary number, everyone will have an opinion of that. We all, at least if you do it as an annual salary. If you do it as a monthly salary, most people are like, what is that? But yeah, annual salary. But anyway, so just a brainstorm I had. Let's see, let's go to Vice Chair Wickham, followed by Member Pine.
So I do really like the idea of using an index and something that can change over time so that you don't have to go back to the voters as often as maybe we've been looking at this. And, when the charter was made, we didn't have all these numbers, right? Now we have choices on which indexes to use. And maybe it's a combination. I don't, that's something for the subcommittee, thankfully, to address. But I do think that it's important to have the index, and then also if whatever is chosen does look like a giant jump or even a big jump, I do like the idea of an initial ratcheting so that it's not like all at once. And, so the people who were elected with the lower amounts are not like suddenly, whoa, look at, so that it does ratchet up, and they knew what they were getting into when they were elected, and it ratchets up over time. And then at the next election cycle, for example, that may open up, being a council member to a broader subset of the population.
Thank you. And next is Member Pine.
Thank you. I know Steph wanted feedback on outreach, and I just wanted to say that I liked everything that Commissioner Wee was asking as just, I think I know I have thoughts obviously, but I know that I know that I would want to hear from the public more broadly as to like what they were thinking in terms of those questions, and just before we throw something on, we recommend to council of what they should be putting on the ballot. I also really liked Chair Larson's kind of verbal kind of word categorization of the numbers. I feel like that would be useful information to kind of ask the public, like, hey, do you think council, what bracket do you think council salary should be, just in terms of income? I think that might be, I'm not saying, obviously they will have, especially when it goes on the ballot, the public will have actual numbers to look at, but just in terms of just bracket, but I think getting bracketing would be very useful public feedback just before pinning down a specific number.
Anyone else on the committee before we go to the public? Not seeing any, so I will now reopen the public hearing. Please submit a speaker card to the city clerk, or raise your digital hand now, or dial *9 on a telephone to indicate you wish to speak, and the city clerk will call on members of the public participating in person first. City Clerk, do we have any in-person participants wishing to speak on this item?
Yes, Chair, we have Steve S. followed. Okay. We have Zachary K. followed by Steve S. Zachary, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Hi, I'd like to offer up a different index that I think is a little more relevant to what this council does. I don't think it's that hard to do, but we'd be creating it ourselves. And that is to take the salaries of the city managers for surrounding cities, Santa Clara, Mountain View, Palo Alto, those are charter cities, and Cupertino and Campbell. Those are all council manager form of government cities, just like Sunnyvale. Take that, average them together, and then index off that. So like every 5 years, you could do that again, the salary portion of it, not including benefits. And then you could derive something from that. And I think that's probably as close as you could get to what the council is doing in terms of work. Whereas taking the area salary, it's, you got a lot of techies, a lot of people with stock options. And while it may make it, I should put it, more lucrative, easier to exist or what have you, it's not tied to what the council does. And I would prefer actually the work to be relevant to what they do. Thank you.
Next, we have Steve S. Steve, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
I think the indexing idea is a good one. I was a little concerned where I hear things of need to make a living, don't want them to be homeless, and that kind of stuff. This is not a career position. This is not a livelihood, okay? When I needed extra money, I tightened my belt, or I worked extra jobs, or I did a consulting contract with somebody, or I did overtime if it was available for a few years of my career. I'll bring back the 10 or 15, 20% is really much, I think our limit is on that. But I liked what committee member Larson talked about is that you could look at extra low income or medium. That I think being down maybe at that extra low or low, making you're about there. And if that bumped at 5 or 10% or something, that would be something good to look at. But we need to avoid those who think this is a livelihood, okay? We have already had embarrassing situations in our city where people who want to be a career politician pop in, maybe successful, maybe not. Maybe they resign because they go on for somewhere else. Okay, maybe they thought they'd get a city staff of their own in Sunnyvale and it just wasn't going to be a livelihood for them. So I think you need to look at this to be fair at an extra work type thing, but the terms of livelihood, they'll be homeless. Not everybody can volunteer to be a Little League coach. Not everybody can volunteer to run for election or to be appointed to a city council thing. You gotta feed your family and pay your rent, the normal way. Somewhere else. So I would like us to consider that. The index suggestion that we just heard from another member of the public, that's an interesting one. I am a little concerned about that because we have seen an example at a city manager situation where there's a city manager job shopped around the Bay Area and maybe even out of the state and somehow weaseled an increase. Well, if you start taking city manager things and compensation for people, council members that vary, you might get this mindset of, well, let's bump ours 15% here and let's bump ours 25% here. So they try to influence the index. Okay, I don't think that the other cities, council members, or individual city managers, they're not going to be able to influence as the other things that the committee member Larson talked about, because that's a larger sampling on things. So please do take those into consideration. Thanks.
Chair, that was the final in-person speaker wishing to speak on this agenda item.
Okay, and we'll go to remote speakers. Remote speakers are warned to limit their comments to the agenda item being considered. Speakers who are ruled out of order will not be given another chance to speak on this item. This is for agenda item 25-0796. City Clerk, do we have any remote participants wishing to speak on this item?
Yes, Chair, we have Mei Ling. Mei Ling, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Good evening. My name is Mei Ling Stephan. Since benefits are part of the compensation package, voters should know about the compensation existing for council members for transparency. Last time I showed plots from which I learned that benefits can even exceed salaries. And I think I understand why, because health benefits coverage can be extended to the whole family. And I have also learned that after 5 years, council members are entitled to lifetime medical benefits. So it can add up to a very substantial amount that many voters have no idea about. So for the sake of transparency, please include the benefits. Thank you.
Chair, that was the final remote speaker wishing to speak on this agenda item.
Okay, thank you. So I will pause the public hearing. Just see if there's one last chance for questions or comments on this subcommittee number 2's topic. Member Wee.
I have a question actually for staff regarding benefits. I'm not familiar with actually the level of benefits that council members get. I am familiar with what tech employers give and our local government gives, and there's sort of a bronze, silver, gold, platinum level. For council members, like what level of benefits does that they get for medical benefits or any other benefits?
Thank you. We do have a policy for that we could definitely share with the committee. I don't have it off the top of my head, so I would have to look it up, and I'm happy to email it. It would be a public document.
I mean, just generally, I would say it's pretty equivalent to managers in the city.
Okay, thank you.
Retiree medical is based on years of service. So some of the benefit programs kind of increase based on how long you've been with the city, but medical is roughly equivalent, I think, to the benefits that managers are entitled to.
But then based on years of service, so there's like an 8-year max for a council member as far as years of service. So that
we can provide you with more detail. It's all in the city's salary resolution.
Yeah, that would be very helpful if you could provide that so we could factor it into our calculations. Thanks.
Yeah, and we can help you with that too, because it's a little complicated once you start reading it.
Yeah, and I'll add on just on the retire or the lifetime medical benefits. That's not lifetime full coverage. It covers maybe 15% of the premiums, and then if the former council member wishes to continue that medical coverage, they still have to pay. It's like 85%, I think, of the costs out of pocket. So it helps a little bit, but there's still a significant cost to that personal cost for that medical coverage. And that's not dental, that's only medical. All right, let's go to Vice Chair Wickham.
I was just curious where the 5-year number came from. Is that the same like for all staff people and just extended to council, or and how long has that 5-year number been in effect?
Are you talking about the retiree medical?
Yeah.
I think so. 5 years is the amount of time that's required to vest in CalPERS. You're not vested in CalPERS until you've completed 5 years of service with a public agency. CalPERS has lots of different rules. So once you're vested, there are rules about providing equal coverage to active employees and retirees and things like that. So I think it's likely, I don't know the history of it in Sunnyvale, but I think that that decision about retiree medical is likely tied to that CalPERS vesting rule of 5 years.
Yeah, my recollection is that the council members are considered, they're like in the same bucket as managers within the city. And there had been some discussion years ago of maybe changing it for council members, but turns out we couldn't change it for just council members because like everyone in that group had to be treated similarly. Yeah. All right. Any other comments from the committee? Seeing none, we will move on to subcommittee number 3. And those topics are city manager settlement of authority to settle claims over $50,000, which is Article 8, and alternative project delivery methods for public works contracts, Section 1309. So we'll go to staff, see if you have any thoughts on that.
Just, in addition to what I said earlier on the general outreach comments, some of the questions you might want to think for the settlement authority is, just starting asking, should it be increased, right? Explaining what it is and should it be increased. And then similar to what we've had earlier discussion, I think brackets might be helpful, right? To go from, if it should be increased from 50 is, between 50 and 100, right? Just to kind of give you a sense of what that might be. And then also, should this be reviewed periodically based on, how just inflation and different factors? It should be reviewed 5 years, 10 years, sort of add that caveat that maybe council could do that through resolution. And the same thing with the Public Works project, sort of explaining what it is, and just do a general question in regards to whether it might save time or money, and maybe use an example project just to make sure that people understand.
Great, thank you. So now we'll bring it back to the committee. You start with Member Olafson.
Thank you. Last week at the Sunnyvale Rotary meeting, Patrick Ahrens, our representative for this area in the assembly, spoke. After that meeting, committee member Vickery spoke to him about this $50,000 limit, and Mr. Ahrens said he would look into it at the state level about changing that to a higher amount. It's only been 8 days, so we haven't had any feedback yet, but just want to make you aware that somebody else is looking at that also. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that information. Anything else from the committee? Not seeing any, so I'll open the public hearing item on these topics. Let's see, where are we? So now would be the time to submit your speaker card to the city clerk, or raise your digital hand, or dial *9 on your telephone to indicate you wish to speak. City clerk will call on members of the public in person first, followed by remote participants. City clerk, do we have any in-person participants wishing to speak on this item?
Yes, Chair, we have Steve S. Steve, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Hello. I do have some thoughts on these, and I've spoken a little bit before. But before that, I wanted to clarify one thing for Committee Member Newswanger. There was a concern with some of my recommendations for 606. If you'll please take a look at my handout for 606D, you'll see that the consideration words for your consideration will handle your 20 months. If you run out of your time limit, you can appoint another one for up to 10 months or leave it open, hold it open. So those wordings do accommodate your full 20 months. Didn't know if you realize that or not. So the city manager settlement claim, that one, well, actually, I'm going to do a global comment. If there's something through policy that can be done without a vote, I think that's thought time well spent. because it's going to be hard to meet those attributes I talked about, who's benefiting and all that, to get the voters to line up with stuff. So on these three or four areas, if you can do it by a policy to bump it to $75,000 or $100,000, yeah, do that. Don't put it to the voters. But otherwise, I think a doubling is reasonable for the kind of thing for claims. The alternative delivery method, I think that's an easy one for me. Yeah, we need to have more flexibility on that. Can get a little more package deal on the pricing and stuff. Once again, does it have to be through the charter? I think it may have to, as the words I remember. So you're sort of stuck, but I think that's an easy sell. That one, it doesn't have dollars with it, or it doesn't have dollar cost. It says this is flexibility and only would be expected to have positive dollar effects for us, to save us money. Okay. Trying to remember what the other one was. The other one, it's off the top of my head. I've lost track of which one it is. But the other one that we talked about too, I think, same path. If you can do it by a policy change or something, do it. But if it benefits the city operation, I think these are pretty easy. The only one that's going to be tough is that dollar one, because voters don't look at the big picture sometimes. Even though they say, well, gee, should we spend 60 council hour and staff hours working on this and have 2 more meetings this year just to save letting the city manager do it? So that's all I've got. Thanks.
Chair, that was the final in-person speaker wishing to speak on this agenda item.
Okay, I will go to remote speakers. Remote speakers are warned to limit their comments to the agenda item being considered. Speakers who are ruled out of order will not be given another chance to speak on this item. This is for agenda item 25-0796. City Clerk, do we have any remote participants wishing to speak on this item?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I will actually close the public hearing and bring it back to the committee for any discussion or further input that you'd like to give to the subcommittee. And I'm seeing no rush to speak, so I think we have good input. Thank you very much. And I don't believe we need a motion unless anyone feels compelled. No, okay, then we will close that item. So now we will move on to non-agenda items and comments. This is the portion of the agenda for oral reports and announcements by committee members and staff to share information. And I would actually like to start with a straw poll committee members. We do have 2 potential meeting dates coming up at the end of August and beginning of September. So currently September 28th or August 28th and September 4th. We certainly don't need both, but wanted to see if there was people know of a preference at this time. And I realize you may need some time to go off and check calendars, so you can certainly feel free to email staff later as well. But I just wanted to kind of just quickly, if I'll give everyone, I see lots of people checking their calendars right now. See, let me think about how to phrase this. So one way is to ask for a preference, and the other is to ask if someone is unable to make one of those dates. And I think actually, I'm going to go with the second one to see if there's any like absolutely can't make it, because if we can't get a quorum, then that date's out. So let's start with that. And if they both seem feasible, then we can go to a preference question. Just by raising hands, who is available on September 28th? Just raise your hand if you are available. August 28th. Thank you for keeping me honest. So 1, 2, 3, 4 people are, wow, okay. And then September 4th, who is available then? So all but one of the people present here tonight. I realize we have two people who are not present. So already it's looking like September 4th is preferable. So I think we'll just confirm that because we do have two people who are out tonight, but I think in very short order, we should be able to definitively say which of those meetings we're going to go with. Good. So other committee members, Member Wee.
Yeah, I have a preference for the 4th. Just give us our subcommittees more time to work with staff and we do have some subcommittee meetings. Otherwise, we're in a really short time frame. It's just, yeah, I appreciate the 4th. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to staff. Does staff have any non-agenda items or comments?
Not today, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned at 6:31, and I want to wish everyone or thank everyone for participation tonight. Thank you.